even when you're out of alignment, even when you feel like, oh my gosh, who have I become? This is not what I like. Instead of blame, shame, and guilt, instead of now forcing yourself to turn, because that's also masculine, right? When you're forceful to yourself and you're to your energy and to your quantum, then you get nowhere. Then you actually feel even worse about yourself. It's a spiral. You just start writing and manifesting and praying over that perfect future that you love. If you don't have a partner, or you because you became so masculine, you lost your marriage or you lost your partner because it's just too much head to head, right? You can start manifesting a new future that is just perfect for you.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am delighted to be joined today with a powerhouse of a guest, Tereza Lolli. Tereza is an award-winning film producer, actress, recording artist, and visionary documentarian whose work is redefining the future of health, wellness, and longevity as the driving force behind Biohack Yourself. Plus, the first of its kind longevity news platform, Tereza's mission is to bring biohacking, longevity, health spanning, and wellness practices to every household globally in a simplified, demystified, and most importantly, vetted fashion under one umbrella. She's part of the power couple with her husband Anthony, who appeared on episode 542, viral sensation and film producer Anthony Lolli, on losing 130 pounds in 9 months, obesity to fitness model transformation, and using biohacking to keep the weight off. She is also a fitness model pro, two-time bikini world champion, and as a mom, Tereza embodies the possibilities of transformation and longevity as captured in her docuseries Super Lollies, establishing her as a leading voice in the fit mom community. I'm looking forward to talking all things health, fitness, entrepreneurship, biohacking, everything under the sun in today's show. Tereza, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Tereza, your CV is second to none. I had to shorten this down heavily because of some of the things that you've done over the years. And I haven't even mentioned ping pong champion. I haven't mentioned Armenian Idol finalist. I'm just so many different things that come under your umbrella. But what I want to use as a catalyst and a jumping off point is what makes you tick and some of the non-negotiables you have. So as a mom, as a fitness person, as an entrepreneur, you mentioned right before we went online that you're launching the kids biohacking blue light blocking glasses. So there's a lot of moving pieces. You're with your son getting them sorted out before this call. So you're running around doing so many things. What are some of the non-negotiables for you on a daily basis or a daily practice that allow you perform at such a high level?
So you asked what makes me tick. I want to say what makes me tick, honestly, is progress. Progress is the name of the game for me. Like, I can never stay doing the same thing, even where I live, right? It needs to constantly change. And even if I'm in the same house, then the rooms need to constantly change. I thrive on change. I thrive on progress, learning. I'm a forever student, and helping make something change for the better, right? Whether it's in a small scale, whether it's in a big scale, that always makes me tick. And when it comes to my absolute non-negotiables, obviously time with my kids, it's like the number one biohack for me, that I have to be really on their level, one on one, really listen to them, see where they're at in life. I don't want to be one of those parents that says they grew up so fast, I can't even fathom. They're now teenagers. I want to indulge every second of their lives. I want to be with them. So that's like an absolute non negotiable. I guess the second non negotiable is achieving things with my husband. And it's funny, I was on a podcast yesterday and she asked me, she said, how are you able to do such big work and yet stay in your feminine? And I credit that to my husband because he's so masculine and I'm able to stay in my feminine. And feminine is very powerful when you actually accept it as such. Your divine femininity has so much power in it to change everyone around you. In the case that you see my story, right? Everything has changed around me, blossomed, and is green, is a green garden around me. Staying in my feminine is another absolute non-negotiable because it's so easy, right? Because the demands are coming and I am an executive and I work with my husband, and most people that I work with are men, a lot more men than women, to be honest. And it's so easy to just like get into that zone and just be masculine and start making decisions and start, pushing things your way. But I constantly have to consciously make the effort to stay in my feminine. So those are really behaviorally my absolute non-negotiables.
I want to unpack that femininity and that divine feminine, because this is something I'm so glad you brought it up, because fitness and entrepreneurship are two traditionally quite masculine energies in terms of they're very yang, they're very do, they're very go. And sometimes it can be difficult for women to balance and live and sit back into that femininity when there's fitness goals and there's business goals outside of Anthony showing up, your husband, in a way that allows you to sit in that feminine. Is there anything else that you do in terms of a community circle that you're around, daily practices, journaling, in terms of anchoring back into that divine feminine that you do on a daily basis or even weekly or monthly, that allows you to not fall too much into your masculine by default? Because this happens to a lot of women subconsciously and they don't realize it until it gets to a point that it gets highlighted and they're like, oh, where did I lose this? And they have to retrace the steps in the journey back. What does that look like for you, Teresa?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've experienced that when I was bodybuilding, right? I became so strong at one point. I actually was able to squat with my husband on my shoulders. And then you really look at it, you're like, well, that's such a masculine thing to do, right? And deadlifting 225 pounds and peak weeking and really just like really getting that energy to push through. Those are very masculine things, right? You're not listening to your body. You're not, going with the flow, the feminine energy. So I've definitely been there where I felt like I'm headed more that direction. And I had to pull myself back and say, I thrive when I'm more connected to my soul. I thrive when I'm more feminine and I allow the men next to me to take the lead. And it comes with trust, right? You have to trust your partner that you've selected for your life. And so I think a lot of the femininity comes from that trust. Like when I just say, you know what? It's okay. You go with this and I'll just work around it. That makes me go straight back into feminine because when I'm very obsessive about certain decisions and I just must make all these decisions and I must micromanage everything, that makes me masculine. That makes me this person that's on the front line and has, fight or flight and has to make decisions at all times. Your brain changes. So I think a part of it is trust into your future self, trust into your partner, trust into your children, that if certain things are not the way you want them to be, trust into the future of your family, into the future of your children, and start manifesting. I find great joy with prayer and manifestation. In fact, I was just having a Zoom with pray.com, this incredible organization who has an app, and now they're doing scientific studies of the benefits of prayer. And I think through prayer and trust, manifestation, and really just constantly thinking in the future and looking at the bright side of everything keeps me feminine, keeps me in balanced mode where I don't have to be fight or flight, make decisions and go fight for this, fight for that. And I've been there, trust me, I've been there before. And it's very tasking as a woman. And you get massive oxidative stress and your cells start zombifying. And at one point, I had a massive amount of zombie cells, senescent cell count. I was measuring them. I was far beyond the maximum limit of senescent cells. And I realized when I tapered back my obsession over perfection, over like my decision making, my way or no way, my senescent cell count actually went down. My oxidative stress is now balanced. Hormonally, I'm getting balanced. And I think like being on a hormone replacement therapy also has helped me. Finding that right functional medicine practitioner who becomes your guide and your coach and really sees where you are, right? Because you could be super testosterone dominant as well. You could be super estrogen dominant. Those are also physical things that can impact your personality. We also recently came across brain mapping, brain rewiring that can ultimately change your personality to either dominant, masculine, or feminine. So those things are really important to look into. What are some of the stressors in your body physically? I lean heavily on biohacking. As you know, I've actually been practicing it since we started filming. We're living it. We're testing ourselves, measuring, we're changing coaches, we're seeing different approaches, and ultimately what works. And I think being in balance with my hormones, with my cells, with my brain mapping has also brought me back into alignment and into my feminine power.
I want to go in a similar direction, but slightly off, because something you mentioned there, and we probably have to go back in the time zone and timeline to when you were competing. You mentioned about not trusting your body, and something that I associate with the healed feminine, the divine feminine, the feminine energy is that intuition. Women's intuition is a very, very, very strong thing. And I know at different stages in a cycle, depending on a woman's season of life, it can be very finely tuned. But something that has come into my space quite a lot with the entrepreneur females that I work with in terms of helping with business, or historically the females who were competitors in bodybuilding, in bikini, in fitness modeling, etc., where I used to help prep people for shows, was they would lose that intuition because they were gone too far into their masculine. Did you find during that season and period of life that that intuition tuned down, or wasn't as finally, or the feedback wasn't as useful as it potentially is now because you've got everything in balance in terms of your hormonal system, your feminine, the energies that are around you, etc.? Did you find that that was, and the reason I bring it up is sometimes there's an aha moment when you've got a woman listening who's gone so heavy into their fitness, so heavy into their business, and they go, oh my God, my intuition and my gut used to be really good and now it's not so good. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Of course, yeah, with bodybuilding especially, there's a lot of push, 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 push your body. And so you mentally have to be in that push state as well. And absolutely, I mean, not one wake up moment, I would say, but I think there were a few times where we had these head to head arguments with my husband. And I was like, whoa, like, this is not me. Like, I listened to my husband. I emphasize with him, and I always have been this person, especially after I became a mother and I read every single childhood book and parenting books, right? I became, I don't want to say psychologist, but I became a very good nurturer of my husband. And when I was in my masculine throughout my bodybuilding and peaking and competing, I mean, we competed in 6 different federations throughout 6 months. So you could only imagine body fat percentage low, 8%. When a female doesn't have body fat percentage, it's really detrimental for health, for intuition, for everything. Everything just falls out of place. I think it was just like the few arguments that I had with my husband that really woke me up. And I didn't like that side of me because my husband always loved my feminine side. That was always what attracted him to me, that I always am this comfort place for him to come and talk to me, be a friend, not a business partner. So I found myself being more of the business partner at that moment. And so I think that was the wake up call. It didn't go so far out because I'm always so in tune with myself. I catch when there's a misalignment, I catch it pretty fast. And I have a practice that I do that your audience can really implement in their lives. I start writing things down, not a journal. I more so write about, if life was perfect, what does it look like? Right? Even when you're out of alignment, even when you feel like, oh my gosh, who have I become? This is not what I like. Instead of blame, shame, and guilt, instead of now forcing yourself to turn, because that's also masculine, right? When you're forceful to yourself and you're to your energy and to your quantum, then you get nowhere. Then you actually feel even worse about yourself. It's a spiral. You just start writing and manifesting and praying over that perfect future that you love. If you don't have a partner, or because you became so masculine, you lost your marriage or you lost your partner because it's just too much head to head, right? You can start manifesting a new future that is just perfect for you. And I swear to you, every time I start writing this perfect future, it almost like a movie comes true. I have this really clear imagination muscle. I think everybody should do imagination muscle development, just like you work on your arms, just like you work on your abs. You should work on this muscle daily. And what that looks like is I often do that for my kids. I'll throw in a movie on Amazon or Netflix. Of course, it has to be approved, no bad messages in the movie, but I'll put this on an audio and I have them watch it in their brains. It's the most annoying thing I do to them, and they fight with me quite often, but recently they're enjoying it because their muscle, I could see when they started enjoying it, I'm like, "Wow, you made it. Your muscle is there. You can make an entire movie in your head just by listening." And I'll do the opposite too. I'll have them watch something on the screen, like on the planes, and I take their headphones. Like they have no headphones. They're now just watching an entire movie and imagining what they're saying. I think these things are so important to build your own brain muscles, brain waves, imagination waves. And I learned this because I grew up in Armenia. The first time I laid my eyes on a screen was when I was maybe 12, 13. We had no screen time growing up. So all I had was me, myself, and I, the world, unlimited playtime. And in Armenia, we had 3 months off from school for the summer and 2 months off from school in the winter. So these months were just long, nothing to do, candle lights, there's no electricity, there was no heat. And I remember just imagining so many things, wanting to be so many things, feeling as if I have achieved those things. So when I watched The Secret, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what I've been doing. I've been visualizing the future me, the things that I want in my life." And so I think it's one of the most important things you could do for yourself to bring yourself back into balance, to feminize yourself if that's what you want.
Teresa, you've given me a unintentional segue to something I was going to bring up later about moving to America with 300 US dollars.
Yes.
With that in mind, because I do want to pivot out and ask about some childhood stuff and lessons that you'll give your kids versus things that you'd prefer to unlearn that happened to you that you'll pass on, because I think there's value there for the adult listeners. But
Yeah.
moving to America with 300 US dollars, just as a jumping off point for that, because what you've achieved is truly inspirational on so many facets, and not just the external stuff, what you've done with the entrepreneurship and the businesses and the money. What I think of success, I think of showing up as a mum. Literally, I can't show up for the podcast for another half hour because I'm looking after my son. We need to go do this thing. I was like, oh, amazing. Priorities are in order. I love that, Teresa. That's what success means to me. I've got a daughter. I would have done the exact same thing. One of the times we had to reschedule was when she got sick. So we've got very similar priorities here. But
Yeah.
when you moved to America during that time, what is something, and we'll use this as a jumping off point, what's something that you wish you had known back then? Because that manifestation journey, the secret, the law of attraction, the power of intention, that was all seeding and growing even during that period of time. But looking back to when you moved over first, what's something that you know now that you wish you had known then?
Honestly, it was perfect that I didn't know as much as I know right now. Because at that point, ignorance was bliss. With having this just ignorance, right? You're young, you're 20 years old, you're in a new country, you have no idea about the dangers. I would never allow my daughter to do the same leap, right? Coming to a whole different country, and we had only one friend of a friend of a friend's daughter who allowed myself and my sister to sleep on our couch for 4 days until we found a job, which we didn't even really speak English that well. So I still remember I knew a few lines. "Hey, are you hiring? I'm looking for a job." I knew my tagline. So I just, go ask for jobs, literally just knock on doors. And my first job was a hostess on a boardwalk at a pizzeria. That's when we were able to move out and live in a small tiny place, my sister and I. And so when you look at that time, it was just perfect because both my sister and I were so ignorant, so trusting of so many people that if I go back right now, I would not even talk to these people out of just, if you look back, I've gone into so many situations that could have ended up me being trafficked or God knows where. But because we had this unconditional trust for human goodness, which is how my mother raised me as Christians, we just had unlimited, even the criminals deserve a shot. Even the worst of the worst kind of people deserve a shot to be trusted that they could potentially maybe one day be good humans. So we always had that kind of outlook to humans. And I think that was a driving force for both myself and my sister to just keep going, just ignorantly learn the language and get another job, get a better job. And it was always upgrade, upgrade. How can we upgrade next month? How can we upgrade our home? How can we upgrade the state that we live in? How can we upgrade our education level now? Okay, now that way I have my degree. So what happened was I worked through the summer in this pizzeria. I was also a lifeguard, just really like lower level jobs paying very low amount, but at least it was helping me get by and learn the language. Then I actually moved to Philadelphia because education is always important for my family, for myself. So I actually was able to transfer all of my grades from the Armenian Yerevan University, and I was able to go to a college here and graduate with 3.97 GPA. And again, achievement, right? Like, how can you achieve? What is the top GPA? I find out, and then I just gun for that. And that keeps my life so interesting because I gamify everything. Education is a game, biohacking is a game, parenthood is a game, being a wife is a game. For me, it's always gamifying. It makes it interesting. So after I graduated from college, I was like, okay, well, what's next? What else do I want to get out of this life? Well, I've always wanted to be an actress and a singer. I had some background in my country. So I quickly started getting into that, just finding out my way. What is a casting? What is an agent? How do you even get a headshot? Like, even the smallest parts of things, like I had no guidance. I had to just ask questions, be annoying to a lot of people, and just kind of catch the string and start pulling in closer. So it was in 10, 11 different movies. One of them was on Netflix with Corey Feldman. At that time, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to move to New York now, get an agent, get education. This is my path. And now when I moved to New York, I fell in love with the music industry. So I recorded an entire album as I was going to an acting conservatory to strengthen my skills as an actor because I wanted to be taken seriously and not just be the character that always gets killed and has an accent. I wanted to actually do proper acting roles. But with music, I really got taken away. I formed an entire band, a pop rock female band of 5 girls, and I was the lead singer, but I was basically producing an entire album. And once I finished with producing, I was having meetings with Warner Brothers, and that's exactly when I met Anthony. And that was like the crossroad of my life, right? Which pathway do I choose? Do I choose this amazing guy who I fell in love with in the middle of Manhattan, who I met completely by chance? Or do I continue with my path that I've worked so hard for? And to me, family values are always number one. And that was another feminine choice that I made, right? It's a feminine choice to say, you know what? I'm going to choose the path of getting married and having children and being the mother that I always wanted to be versus being career driven and saying, nope, I'm not ready for this relationship yet. I'm going to do what's best for me as a career. So I think that was another very big feminine move that I made that ultimately made my life a heaven because the kids that we have right now, the relationship that my husband and I have, the movement that we have built could not have happened had I just chosen me, myself, and I, and what's important to me.
Your movement you're creating, and I spoke about this a lot on the podcast with Anthony, is incredible in terms of the biohacking movement. And we've had a lot of overlapping guests and people that have been in the documentaries, on the series, the magazine, etc., have been on the podcast. And again, everyone speaks so highly of both of you, and I see why. Having spoken with both of you, you're both just powerhouses of people trying to make the world a better place. I want to ask a couple of questions around this because the gamify, I love that you turn everything into a game. And you
Yes.
also, oh, that's a beautiful way to see the world. Again, it's that childlike curiosity that takes away some of the self-imposed ego pressure as an adult that I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. It's like if you can view the world through a child's eyes and gamify, you're going to have a lot more fun, which I think it's very, very easy to take life very seriously when actually if you look at it as a game, and that's not to minimize people's struggles, etc., but sometimes it's change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, to have that
Yes.
famous quote. I want to ask, you talked about the being raised with that unconditional goodness, that unconditional trust of people. Out of curiosity, I'm going to come at this from both sides. So it's a two-part question, but I'll ask the first part. What is something that you were raised with? You mentioned your mother there, that you were going to pass on to your children. I assume that's possibly going to be one of it. But when you think of characteristics or personality traits that clearly molded the younger Teresa that you want to instill into your children, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind is what you just mentioned, which is ego, like not having an ego. Look, everybody has their own style of ego, right? At least shape your ego in the most giving, loving, trusting way. So shaping the ego has been big. Emotional intelligence has been big. Emotional maturity, really. And trust towards humanity. Like that's what instill in my kids, you know. Trust in God, trust in your future self. Doesn't matter where you are in life. You should trust that in 2 years you will achieve what you want to achieve. You just have to focus on it, write about it, manifest it, right? This kind of thing just lifts so much pressure off of you because the future is uncertain. Most people's struggles are about the future. You're really not trusting you, God, your future. It's dark, it's hesitant, and if you're in a bad place right now, you think it may get worse. No, instead, you should think about the most positive outcomes. It's funny because we just interviewed Andrew Tate, a polarizing figure. He's going to be on the cover of Biohack Yourself because he's the ultimate biohacker that nobody knew about. He fasts, he only eats almost like a ketogenic diet. He's super hydrated. His biomarkers are intense and incredible. His gut is amazing. And that's what he said too. He said, "When I was in prison, I just trusted my future self." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's like what I always think about." And see, I notice a lot of these high level people, and we've interviewed by now probably 250 people, and most of them are at the top of their games. And most of them have gone through incredible challenges, incredible pain to purpose stories. With Biohack Yourself, we've interviewed some amazing stories of people just outgrowing cancer and just looking at cancer like it's a joke, right? So people turning their pains into purpose and trusting their future selves, gamifying. Oh, let me check my biomarkers. What are they right now? A perfect example is Amy Horniman right now. She's a good friend. She's a part of my Shield documentary, an incredible human being, gets hit with cancer. She's very public about it. She talks about it. She gamified the whole thing and she beat cancer in the shortest amount of time. Because as you gamify, as you announce to the world what your challenge is, magically, people that are meant to come to you and help you out in ways that you could never even imagine, they come your way. And then your whole path, your whole struggle, your whole victory turns into this beautiful art that you never even imagined.
I've interviewed several cancer researchers on the podcast as well. And the answer I get back in some variation, paraphrase, which surprised me initially and doesn't anymore, is when I ask them, well, look, what are the best things they can do? Because you assume, like, I'm a nutritionist, fitness person at the heart, I assume they're going to say, look, limit sugar and control carbohydrate and your insulin sensitivity, etc. Nearly all of them come back and go positive mental attitude,
Of
positive mental
course.
attitude. And these are people who are not woo woo, spiritual monks on
Sure.
a mountain. These are the people in the depths of the research who are
Yes.
working with people in cancer, evidence supported, who are talking about the power of a positive mental attitude when it comes to that disease in particular, which, again, sharp left turn, but in the same direction originally. When we think to your childhood and what you're going to pass on to your children in terms of a whole host of things, some of which you mentioned there, is there anything that comes to mind? Because we're in a very different time now. It's 2025 going into 2026. Is there anything that comes to mind that you had to unlearn because of childhood and are very mindful that your children don't pick it up now?
That's a good one. I feel so blessed, honestly, with my upbringing. And a lot of the values that I'm bringing right now, even my husband says, "Oh, that's a very good one." Like I didn't even think about it. I think the biggest thing for me is limiting screen time so much. And I always tell my kids, like, look at what I've built. And I grew up with no screen time. You do not need video games to be fast. And because my son is the best negotiator, he's like, Mom, you don't understand, for hand-eye coordination, because he knows all this lingo now because he interviews some of the biggest experts. It's like video games are really good for brain development. You don't know because you weren't raised in this country. You were raised in old school country. And I tell him, I don't know. I didn't play video games. I didn't really look at screen and but because when you look at screen, you whether you want it or not, you get indoctrinated by either positive or negative or just blah ideas that are going to impact your personality. It's the food that you put in your body, but it's most importantly what you put in your eyes and your ears. It can really change the course of your life. So, would I have changed anything? One thing that I feel like I was missing maybe in my childhood was certain direction. Like my mom and my dad never gave me direction. They always said, you can do anything you want to do, which is great. That's a direction. But I found myself incredibly all over the place for most of my life, thinking, I want to be a scientist. I want to be a famous singer. No, I want to be this. No, I want to be that. And when you look at my resume, exactly what you said in the beginning, I have been all over the place. How do I go from being a ping pong champion to an almost getting signed to Warner Brothers to be a recording artist to a momager with two successful kids who are investing in real estate at the age of 6 and 8 to then building the biggest media empire. And I do look at it as a positive though, so I can look at it as something negative, but where I am in life right now, I'm absolutely loving. So I can't say that one thing should have been different because ultimately what made me be where I am is what I've experienced. So I just try to bring, as hard as it is, my old school values to my children. Emotional intelligence, key, no screen time, like minimum screen time. And if we're watching something, you're either not getting the screen and you're only listening, or you're not listening and watching the screen. And most movies, most shows, I have to kind of vet and see the parent reviews on Google if there's anything negative about it, because they normalize demonic behavior these days. They make fun of demonic behaviors like the K-pop demon hunters, right? My daughter, she got to watch it and she has such good arguments about this movie that it's actually a good movie, that how she fights the demons. But all through the movie, they're normalizing demons. They're normalizing the existence of the demons that are all around us, and it's totally okay, and you can fight them. I don't wanna say anything about the cartoon itself, like, I don't wanna bash one cartoon alone or one movie alone, but I just want to alert the parents it's okay if your kids don't watch any screen. There is so much. Hire a tutor to come teach your kids every single board game and card game out there. For example, I've done that myself. Like the kids know about 20 board games and card games, and they can play all day long, and they're homeschooled. So they have so much time. They only do 2 hours of schooling at home with a tutor. Imagine how much time they have at home. How much can you play outside? Let's say 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, endlessly running around and playing, getting physical activity, breathing air, fresh air, getting red light, grounding. But then what about the rest of the time? The rest of the time, they're either drawing, they're playing games with each other. There's so much to do. They're practicing their pickleball. So much you can find to do. You don't have to medicate the children with screens. That's like my biggest pet peeve right now. When I see a 2-year-old in a restaurant with a screen in front, because the parents, they are people, they got to enjoy life too. So they're going to a restaurant, but then the kid is completely disconnected from the family, disconnected into their own world. Why don't you bring the child into your conversation, even if it's mature conversation? So that's what we've done. We include our kids in every mature conversation you can think about. This is why they have the emotional wisdom right now.
With parenting, it's such a difficult thing to maneuver, and
Exactly.
having a filter and a boundary, like you said, is key. And again, I'm definitely not the one to offer parental advice for sure, but it's one of those, and I get it, it's difficult. Like, self awareness is a very attractive trait, it's a very high frequency and vibration that I tend to bring towards me. So, most of my friends, myself included, our daughter's in our conversations. So, when we go out for dinner, she's in the conversations, and a lot of
I
my
love
friends are
that.
the same. But there's people where they wouldn't necessarily have that awareness, and as a result, the screen is the deflection. It's just, okay, I'm tired, work was busy, I'm stressed out, I'm not eating well, well. I don't feel good. The kid's going to annoy me now. This is what I give them the screen. And I hope what this podcast does is it brings that awareness that I always say you can't give from an empty cup. And what normally happens is if your cup is empty or it's low down, whether you're a mother or a father or just looking to be a better person in general, that tends to knock on to your kids, because if you're tired all the time, you feel sick, your energy's low, it's very difficult to be a good husband, a good wife, a good brother, a good sister, a good
100%.
father, a good mother. So I think it's really important. I want to ask there, because you mentioned your children and the ideas. I'm very, very curious as an entrepreneur and as someone who works with a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of helping them with their fitness businesses in particular, idea formation. And I'm dying to know this. And since we booked the podcast first, it was one of the first questions I wanted to ask was, how do you filter your ideas, or how do you let them breathe? Because between what you do personally, what you do with Anthony, what you do with your kids, you mentioned there about the blue light blockers before we came on, you talked about the real estate with your kids, you talked about the documentaries, there's lots of moving parts. What's your process for filtering what I can only imagine outside of manifestation, the amount of downloads of ideas that come into your head? What's your filtering for which ones to follow?
It's such an amazing question, right? Because me personally, I'm this nonstop learner, which has been the engine and the motor of Lolly Brands Entertainment, as well as Biohack Yourself Media, bringing together so many experts because I constantly have these questions, the curiosity. And you can only imagine, like you said, how much information I've been downloading and how busy and loud and noisy it could be in my brain. So then how do you actually stick to the basics, or how do you stick to what's humanly achievable, right, for your kids without driving them insane? I've definitely had to balance that when we were on a complete gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, corn-free diet, screen-free, lifestyle. At one point you realize these kids are rebelling against me and it's going to come back to fire back. So hey, I need to bring some balance into it. What I do is, do you know anything about kinesiologist?
Yeah, about
How
yeah,
they do the
y-
muscle testing?
yes. For people, you can explain it, Tracer, or I can explain it about that. But when there's something fighting against your body, you push your arm down, and it will show a negative ions energy through the body, and it'll make you weaker, and other things will make you stronger. Just to give people a brief synopsis.
Exactly. So I kind of use similar principle. I tend to trust my children's intuition because I keep them so clean, food wise, screen wise. I trust that their intuition is still clean and that they're connected to their soul bird, what we call. We have an amazing book about the soul bird that we read almost religiously because you cannot lose that soul bird. And so ideas that come to me, I filter it through them. So I'll sit there with them. I would tell them, hey, so there's this DNA test that I did for you guys. I want to find out all the gene expressions that you guys have because I found out that it's a complete game changer. That, if you have certain gene breakages, we can actually supplement those and your body can operate as if those genes are expressing themselves precisely. For example, if you have a, let's say, the MTHFR gene mutation that doesn't allow you to sufficiently detox, or if you have this other gene mutation that doesn't allow you to absorb vitamin D. So you're consistently deficient in vitamin D. Is it better that you know about this and you're able to supplement so your body builds itself and builds your life as a full on Ferrari? Or do you want to not find out and operate the way you're operating in your life? And then if you do get ill later down the road, you'll address it later down the road. And I got two different answers. My daughter, who's the diligent one, she wants to know everything. She wants to be completely ahead of the game. She said, oh my gosh, I want to find out. I want to find out. Let's do it right now. So I did her test. I did my test, did my husband's test, even my niece and my sisters. And we have this incredible discoveries of our genetics, right? And this is just one example. Whereas my son is like, yeah, I don't care. Like, look at Brian Johnson. He was fat, he was sick, and now he's top one in the longevity Olympics. And he knows about it because I'm competing in the Olympics. I'm top 96. But Brian Johnson is top one, which means his aging pace, right? He's measuring his aging pace throughout the years, throughout his protocols, is at 48%. So every year he ages, like humanly, his body's only aging 48%. And so my son's argument is always like, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to like stress out about it. To me, I just want to be a kid. I want to like, if I'm intolerant to gluten, I don't give a shit. Like, I want to just eat whatever I want to eat. I can be as unhealthy as I want to be. But then when I get to Brian Johnson's age, I can wise up and be a biohacker and I can straighten myself out. And I trust their intuitions because his happiness to me right now matters more. Because if I force down my ideals to him, he's not going to be happy with it. So sometimes when you're taking a supplement and you're like, yikes, like I wish I didn't take it, it may actually even impact you more negatively. So I want them to be in synergy. I educate them about what I'm educated about, which is how the whole Biohack Yourself came about because I was getting so educated and I felt like my friends, my family, my children, my husband were all kind of behind. That's why I said we have to do this documentary. I put my husband through all these interviews for him to get aligned with me because I need him to impact our kids, right? Because he was doing the wrong diet, the wrong eating habits, and everything like that. We were kind of split in the vision. So brought him in, and right now we are so aligned that I trust my kids. I trust my husband. I trust everyone that's around me. So if I have an idea that I want to filter through, I simply ask them. This is what I learned. I'm totally obsessed with this. I want to do, let's say, parasite cleanses every 6 months. It'll allow me to get rid of this horrible things that are eating every vitamin in my body and are causing all kinds of autoimmune conditions. But it's going to require you to do this, 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 this. It's going to be annoying for 21 days and you may feel the off dying symptoms, which is even worse. Are you in or are you out? And then I just do everything I believe in myself. And then they see. And again, me being in the perfect state of mind, in the perfect state of health by myself, it's driving them. They want to follow my example. They're like, whoa, look at her. She's almost 40 and she's competing in the longevity Olympics and she's having these conversations. Hey, what can you give me? I want to make it to top 50. They hear my conversations. I'm competitive about even biohacking. So I think, being your best self as a mother, as a wife, you first. Even on the airplanes, they say put the oxygen on you first, then your kid. Most parents would think the other way, right? Put it on the baby first, secure the baby. But no, because sometimes they rebel. They're like, I don't need the oxygen. By the time they're fighting you for the oxygen, you're gonna be no oxygen and in no shape to later on save them. So that's my filtration process.
I'm so glad I asked that. Something I've said regularly is you can't give from an empty cup. And I will never be a mother. That's not my path or soul's journey. But I see it
Yeah.
so often where mothers will prioritize and put other people above themselves. But as
Yeah,
you mentioned, using that analogy of the airplane mask, you can't give from an empty cup. Whether that's your health, your wellness, your energy. You have to fill that up first. And then there's spillover for your husband, your boyfriend, your son, your daughter, your family, your friends,
absolutely.
etc.
I actually find it, sorry to interrupt, I find it incredibly, in a way, selfish to put yourself last because you become a burden and you become less optimal to give because everyone in your family relies on you. You are that divine feminine. And if your cup is full, you're able to be so much more for your
I
family.
love that. I couldn't agree more. That's a beautiful line, Teresa. I've got one final question I want to ask, but before I do that, I'm going to link up the Instagram page. I'm going to link up several of my favorite interviews that you've done that I haven't even got into on today's podcast. But for anyone that's listening, the website, the documentaries, everything will be in the show notes. Is there anyone in any place in this current moment that you'd exceptionally like to send people to? Is it the Instagram page? Is it one of the documentaries? Or anything you'd like to give like that in terms of obviously that you feed so many moving parts? I'll let you take this over before the final question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you haven't gotten your magazine subscription, definitely get it. I mean, we're publishing some of the most incredible scientists' works right now, cutting edge on our magazine, and we advertise the best of the best companies that go through vetting. So if you want to really start your biohacking journey, subscribe to the Biohack Yourself magazine. You'll get 4 of them throughout the year delivered to your door. It's tech-free wellness. There's no blue light. You can do it, while before you go to bed or in your hyperbaric chamber, and it's safe. So When you go to biohackyourself.com, there's a red button. It says print or digital. It says subscribe. So get your magazine subscription. It costs next to nothing. Also, absolutely follow us on Instagram, Biohack Yourself Media, which is where we catch you up on the latest, the greatest. For example, right now we're filming biological dental documentary, and the discoveries we're making, the illnesses that are connected to your mouth and to the work that's been done to your mouth is incredible. We did an oral microbiome test, and I discovered I have this horrific microbe that could cause me a sudden heart attack. How do I know? I'm in my mind, I'm a true biohacker. I'm the producer. I'm the, whatever. I'm doing it right. My anti-aging markers are through the roof. They're amazing. But I have this microbe that's living there. And one day it could happen to me, even if I'm the healthiest biohacker. So it's like so important. We're going to cover all of this in the mouth and how that's related to your brain, related to your personality, even related to your intestines and heart and the rest of your body. So stay in tune with the Biohack Yourself Media Instagram, where we bring all of these leaders that we find, we vet, and we go through a rigorous process to bring you guys the best.
I love that. That's actually very heavily in my space at the minute. I saw it right before we came on air. You were on a recent podcast talking about this. And I
Yes.
had Dr. Michelle Jorgensen on the podcast recently. She's a biological dentist as well. And I've been trying to spread awareness around this. And again, when I saw you speaking about it and coming into the documentary, I'm like, okay, I need more on this, because huge gaps, even as a health person, fitness person, you miss this completely. So again, I'm going to link that directly for people below so they can see it. Final question, and it might be linked, Teresa. When you think of biohacking, you're wearing the glasses now to help with the blue light. We were speaking about it before we went online. You have the DNA testing that you mentioned, the parasite cleansing, which is technically all biohacking because we're still biologically
Sure.
hacking our body. When you think of biohacking, what's your favorite and most underrated tool that comes to mind? I asked Anthony a very similar question. I'm curious, from in your own personal life or business life or family life, what is the tool that is either your favorite and or most underrated?
Yeah, I mean, I would say biological dentistry, honestly. Even the top leading biohackers who are doing everything, heavy metal chelations, parasite cleansing, they're eating ketogenic diet, they're hydrating themselves, they're doing hydrogen therapy for 60 minutes a day, red light therapy. Like, even these people, they can have an absolute cap to their wellness and longevity if they have root canals, cavitations. I'm not even talking about mercury amalgam. I think the whole world now knows about that thanks to the root cause documentary. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Extractions that are being done the wrong way, for example, living dead tissues and the bone doesn't heal properly, it can actually create this thing called cavitation, which is basically a pond, an empty pond that has dead root maybe left over, a dead tissue left over, and then the gum closes, and now you have parasites festering, mold. For me, I had my 4 cavitation surgeries done with Dr. Dom in Germany, and he found mold in one of my cavitations. So here I am biohacking and doing everything that I'm learning, hormone optimization, peptides, like I'm going next level. And yet I have mold 24/7 in my gums that's affecting and capping how much more amazing I could feel with all of these therapies. So I think the most underrated is finding the best biological dentist and at least getting a cone beam scan, which is a 3D scan, and really getting a consultation. Do I have root canals? Do I have cavitations and infections living in my body 24/7? And with our documentary, we're bringing some of the best dentists that are actual, real biological dentists with a ton of practice and a ton of expertise. And they're actually the leaders of teaching the next generation of biological dentists. So, yeah, they can find them very easily if they go to Biohack Yourself Media Instagram platform.
Oh, the universe is so funny. Literally, as I said, this has been the thing that's been the most heavy in my space, and now we're literally wrapping up the podcast with it. Teresa, an absolute blinding conversation. I think, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, both of you were such inspiring individuals. And when I spoke with Anthony, I spoke literally in the first 10 minutes. I was like, look, I'm dying to chat to your wife as well. I was like, the two of you work on a different wavelength, a different vibration, and I want to see what makes you tick. And I think we've got to a little bit of it is today's show, and people can follow on the Instagram, they can follow on the channels to get even more on what you're doing. Tereza, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much again for your time, and keep on inspiring.
Thank you.
That was Tereza Lolli talking about biohacking in your 40s, the fit mom community, and staying in your divine feminine. As I mentioned, today's podcast was sponsored by my business mentorship program. I've been working with a lot of females on their business in the circle, which my online mastermind, but also in my business mentorship program. So the link for both will be in the description below. I hope you got as much value from today's podcast as I did recording it. It was an interview I was really looking forward to off the back of speaking with her husband, Anthony, several months ago. That link will also be in the description below if you want to check it out. That's everything from me from today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next week.